All right, let's see if we can get this data to display. So I was in the middle of creating this little, what I call card, that has the information for each project. So we have a div that's going to be the card. And then in there, we say the project name, and then we just have a bullet pointed list with each of these pieces of information. So we were wrapping this up. So li, and we have here the project phase, and then p dot project phase. And the last one we have is the li project status, and p dot project functionality status. Okay, so now we've got, save that so it likes the formatting. Now we've got the basic structure of this, what a project looks like, set up, and it's pulling the information from this state variable, this projects, which is a project array. That's what, that's where we're grabbing the data from. But currently, if we run this, the projects is blank. It's not going to do anything. And so how do we go pull the data? That's our next task, is how do we go get the data? And so you remember from last time, we used this thing called use effect, which only goes and grabs the data when it needs to, rather than constantly going and getting and updating all the time. And so I'm going to use effect. Make sure I get all my correct parentheses and braces in here. So use effect, opening brace, and as part of this use effect, I'm going to do two things. One is I'm going to create a const called fetch projects, and that is going to be equal to async, and then lambda function, and then as part of that, what we're going to do is we're going to get a const that is a response. We're going to set that equal to await fetch, and then the address where we're going to go get this data. Now, where is the address for all the data? Well, we have it here. So I'm going to copy that and drop it in here in some quotes. So that's where it's going to go look for that JSON. Okay. I create another const called data. This is actually going to hold the data, and I'm going to set it equal to, I'm going to await the response and then get the JSON out of it. That's going to go into my data. All right, so we go look for the data, we await till it comes in, and then we're going to set this data to the response once we have it, going and getting the JSON out of it. And then that's the setup. So this is fetch projects, right? So then I'll call, as part of this use effects, that function. I'll say fetch the projects, and then if nothing comes back, so after this blue brace here, I'm going to put a comma and say, look, if nothing comes back, just feed in an empty array. All right, so that almost works. Our one little trick is that the data that we're using to populate this little card comes from projects. How does this process, how do we get something into projects? And so we have to remember to go set that project with the new data once we've made this call and received the data from the API. So where do we do that? Well, once we have the data, and it's telling us here, this is declared but never used. Once we have the data, we want to go in and set the projects and pass in that data that we have so that this projects variable gets set with the updated data. All right, it doesn't recognize use effect. I need to go in with that and import from React use effect with use state. And so again, in summary, what we're going to do here is we're going to, we've got this project list component. As part of it, we're going to associate some data with this project list component, and it's going to use state to keep track of this data as we on the page as part of its like self-enclosed component. We're using state, like I say, we're going to set this projects, which is a project array, and we're going to create a function to be able to update projects as needed. If nothing is in at first, we're just going to pass in a default array. Okay. Then we build this little, or we use effect. We build a little function called fetch projects. It has a few parts. It goes and first awaits a fetch from this address, and then it tries to pull the JSON out of that into a variable called data. And then once we have that data, we're going to go set projects to hold the data that's come in. Okay, so then after we've created this little use effect, we actually call, or as part of the use effect, we call this method use project or fetch projects. It goes and tries to pull the data, and if it pulls it, great. If it doesn't, it's going to pass back an empty array so we don't get an error. And then we go in with that data that's now sitting in projects. We map it out, which means we go in and take all the data and spread it out so it's individual rows, and then we go through in like a for each loops essentially and drop it into these different spots here. So let's see if this actually works. It's not going to, by the way. Why? Because it's the afternoon. Okay, so I'm going to Control C. Let's make sure this is running good. I'll save all .NET fun, but really run. Okay, so now we've got our server running, and we come back here. We say, okay, perfect. Let's run this app. So we want to make sure we're in the front end folder, npm run dev. We go to this website. Nada. Well, that wasn't the reason I was thinking it wasn't going to show, but we're still seeing the Vite stuff. We should probably go get rid of that default stuff. So in the app TSX, I'll get rid of all this stuff inside the return statement, and instead I'm just going to call my project list component that I've just built. We're not going to be using state anymore, so we can get rid of that. We can get rid of these imports, which we're no longer using, and save that and see if it likes it. So it can't find name project list. I need to import that component into this element. So now it can see project list. So we're all good here. And then, like I say, we probably in the index HTML, we probably don't want to leave Vite and React plus TS. We want to say water project. Save that. Make sure we've saved all actually, so that we've got everything. And then let's go back to our running page. And it prints out water projects, but it doesn't bring in any of that data. Well, why not? What was the last thing we needed to do? We needed to tell .NET that it was okay for requests from this page to come in. And so I'm going to close out of this, close that, and we're going to go into our .NET program in the program CS and make a couple of entries there, as you'll recall. All right, one of the entries is to say we want to, in the builder services, we want to say builder.services.add cores. Okay, so we're going to use something called cores, which allows us to get requests from specific origins. And then down here, we have app.useCores, and we say we're okay with any request with origins of, and then we have to decide where we're coming from. Now we're running currently, we've been running from, where are we running from? 5173, and so I can jump into drop that in there. I don't want all that stuff. See, I'm trying to hurry, and whenever I try to hurry, it is just bad. I should just give up on the trying to hurry. So with those origins, and it was 5273. All right, we're gonna have to see if this works in the last video. Spencer, out.